Hey, thanks for watching. One of the most common misconceptions about the Bible is that the two divisions in the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament, represent two different messages. People have this impression that the Old Testament is all about the law and the New Testament is all about the gospel. And strengthening this misconception of the Old Testament as all about the law is really a mistranslation, or at least a misleading translation, of one of the most common Hebrew words in the Old Testament. And this word is Torah. Now, most of the time when this word comes up, it's translated in English versions as law. But the problem is, it doesn't mean law. It can mean law, but it can also mean instruction or a lot of other things. The Hebrew word Torah, which comes from the verb yara, meaning to direct or to instruct or to teach, simply means instruction. So the Torah is the teaching. The Torah is the instruction of God. And of course, as we know, instruction can be law or it can be gospel. You can proclaim what God requires you to do. You can teach that, or you can teach what God has done for you in Christ. If you teach what God requires of us, now that is law, but if you teach what God has done for us in Christ, that of course is gospel. So Torah is a broad word that encompasses both of these. It's the instruction of God, instruction which sometimes takes the form of law and sometimes takes the form of gospel. But the problem is, most of the time, English translations render the Hebrew word Torah as law. So when you're reading through the Old Testament and you come across this word law, kind of in your mind make an adjustment. Instead of seeing law there, see Torah, or teaching. And that's going to give you a very different perspective as you're reading through a lot of different passages in the Old Testament. Let's take one, for instance, Psalm 1. Psalm 1 begins by talking about how the blessed man doesn't walk in the path of the wicked or sit with sinners or take a seat with the counsel of the wicked. Instead, what does he do? Well, his delight is in the Torah of Yahweh. And in that Torah, he meditates day and night. Now, most English translations render this that his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. Well, now, that certainly is true. He can meditate in the law, but he can also meditate in the gospel, because the Torah of Yahweh, in which is his delight, and in which he meditates, that Torah is the full counsel of God. It's the law and the gospel. It's every word that God has given to us in the scriptures. So when you read through the Old Testament and you see the word law, just substitute Torah, or teaching, and it's going to give you a different perspective on exactly what God is instructing us about, what he's teaching us about. Because very often, Torah means gospel. It's God instructing us or teaching about us about what he's done for us in Christ. So as we meditate upon the word, as we delight in the Torah of Yahweh, let's delight in every word that he's given to us, whether that word is a command or whether that word is a gift, the gift of the gospel. So Torah, the instruction of God, the teaching of God, which is given to us in order that we might know who he is and know who we are, in order that we might know what he requires of us and what he gives to us in the good news of Jesus. Thanks for listening.